Hi, Dr. Ankesh. How are you?
Hi, Sakshi. Good to see you.
Same here. We'll just start in the next 5 minutes, just as everybody, all the panelists join in.
All well otherwise?
Yes, absolutely.
You're in Mumbai only, no?
I'm currently traveling, but otherwise I'm in Bangalore. I'm not in Mumbai.
How's the weather? It's quite warm here, yeah.
In Bangalore, it's pretty good. It's pretty nice, the weather.
Really, really warm today.
Bombay starts to get warm post-January, I guess.
Yeah. 10-day winter we
get. True. Hi, Dr. Natasha. Good to have you here. Can't hear you. You're on mute.
Hi, Sakshi. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great.
We'll just start in a couple of minutes as more people join. Karishma, are you there too?
Hi.
Hey. How are you? How are you doing?
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
So are we running on time?
Yes, just in like a couple of minutes. We already have some 10 participants.
Okay.
And we can just start in a couple of minutes, yeah.
Sabji, could you actually introduce all of us, since I think all the speakers are around?
Absolutely. I will just start a round of introductions in a minute.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our first event under IWD 2021. Really glad to have you all here. Today, we have with us three of our experts. Dr. Ankesh, who's a gynecologist and a sexologist based out of Bombay, majorly practicing at Pushpa Hospital. He's been very active in the whole PCOS sphere, and that's the reason we keep having these conversations with him, having him on our platform from time to time. Karishma is a nutritionist and lifestyle educator based out of Bombay again, and her expertise, of course, lies in in a whole range of kinds of diets, be it vegan, ketogenic, intermittent fasting. But more importantly, she does focus on correcting your nutritional habits and lifestyle, and helping you understand what works for you the best. She has been working in the whole sphere of chronic conditions, including PCOS, obesity, diabetes, etc., for a number of years now. And we have with us Dr. Natasha, who's joined us for the first time for an event at My Ava. She's a dermatologist who specializes not just in skincare but also into hair transplant surgeries, and the whole range of symptoms that come with PCOS, skin and hair related issues that come with PCOS. She has been pretty vocal about it and has a specialization in those. So today we're going to have a very comprehensive discussion about PCOS and other chronic conditions as well, because that's something we've all seen a rise in the last couple of years. And let's understand why is it that we are hearing about it or seeing it happen at such a great level. And let's see what all comprises when we talk about the issues that come with chronic conditions and how do you deal with them. So starting with a very basic question, to sort of kickstart this whole session, that I would like to pose at all the three experts. What's your take on integrated management of chronic conditions as compared to just working on one's lifestyle or just going the medicinal route?
Ladies
Karishma,
first.
Dr. Ankesh, if you would like to go
What
first.
about ladies first?
Sure, we could start with Karishma then, yeah.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I think the integrative approach, to heal anybody's body works kind of best because, when if it's, for example, if you're looking at, weight management, it's not only just about the food that you eat, right? But it's got to have a lot of balance that is in a different circle of life. So that's where there's creativity, your career, your relationship, social connection. And I would just love to emphasize a lot on spirituality, basically. So when you look at somebody actually healing, like since we know your mental and physical body are so closely connected, I think the integrative way would work far more better and heal you for sustain for life, rather than looking at something like a quick fix. So in short, even if I'm looking at a woman with PCOS, I would definitely go a little deeper into it to understand what triggers a PCOS. So I think the integrative approach works fantastic for everyone.
Thank you. Explained really, really wonderfully. Yes. Dr. Natasha, would you like to go next?
I think Karishma's explained it really beautifully. So I completely agree with her as well. I mean, integrated medicine basically means, it's not just a treatment or oriented plan that you're going along with. It's actually finding the root cause of what you're facing and, taking the path of self-healing first. So that doesn't only have to be physically, it could be mentally as well. It could be, again, through your lifestyle and diet, like how Karishma said, but actually getting a complete management for your concern would include your integrated medicine. And I think it's a much better way because, as she said, it's just going to keep your disease in remission. And if not in remission, at least it's going to keep it under control when you're not on your medication or, just by following a certain lifestyle changes. It could be your diet, it could be mentally stressed, it could be doing something to, just occupy yourself. And definitely agree. And when it comes to skin and hair specifically, we all know that, what you put into your mind and what you put into your body shows up on your skin and shows up on your hair. So I completely feel that integrated medicine is the need of the hour. And I think with the lockdown and COVID, everyone's become a little more aware about leading a healthier lifestyle and not just piling on the medication.
Definitely, I think this is one if people are down and look at the lives they were making all these years. Dr. Ankesh?
Yeah, hi. So I agree with both the ladies. I totally agree with even spirituality and mental health and having a good set of thoughts in your mind. And yeah, we are what we think, we are what we eat, we are what we do. So of course, again, coming to lifestyle, it's about your diet, your exercise, your sleep pattern. Everything is so important. We have girls who come tell us when they were 16, they were so thin, and now they are 25, they are so fat and they are so unhappy and they are body shamed and they are having problems with their skin and their hair and their their entire appearance. So I feel somewhere you got to go back to the root cause of what their lifestyle was when they were young, what their diet was, what they were thinking back then. Of course, with age you'll have more responsibilities, you'll have more stress, you'll have more worries, but you can't spoil your health. And no job, no salary, no position is more important than your mental health. So I obviously believe that again, your mental health is again the starting point of everything, and you have to have a good lifestyle and some time for yourself every day. Maybe even you could be very busy, but a little yoga, a little meditation goes a long way.
Right. Thank you. So I think we're moving forward being on the same page about the whole approach towards chronic conditions, that it has to be a combination of everything. It cannot just be one aspect that you look at. So I would like to start my first question towards directed towards Dr. Ankesh, especially that we've been talking about PCOS on multiple platforms so many times. Do you think PCOS is an overdiagnosed condition? This is a debate that's been coming up lately, and is there a reason that you think there has been such a surge in the number of women who've been diagnosed with PCOS?
I lost you the entire question. Can you repeat the question, please?
Sorry, yes. My question was that is PCOS an overdiagnosed condition? Do you think there is something wrong when? Sorry, you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I'm saying absolutely it's overdiagnosed.
Why do you think there has been such a surge in the numbers that have been coming up?
Now I'll tell you what happened. Now I'm a gynac, I'm qualified, I'm also now we get patients coming in with their files of their general practitioners, not necessarily MBBS, could be BHMS, could be PUMS, Ayurvedic, homeopathic, and they've been written over there PCOD, and they've been asked to take metformin, and they've been asked to take some dermatological creams. So the GP is advising the dermat prescription, the diet, and the gynac stuff. And I say, where's the sonography? नहीं वो नहीं बताया है, वो नहीं किया है. So I'm like, okay fine, blood test नहीं कुछ करने को नहीं बोला, बोला ये दवा लेना है, आप ठीक हो जाओगे. And I'm like, whoa, which दवा is this? I have to get into all this. I can learn something from these guys. I do a sonography. They don't have PCOD at all. So there's a sonography criteria and there's a blood criteria and a clinical criteria to be defined as PCOD. This is something which I'm ready to, give my degrees in return of all this. If you don't have these criteria, you can't call us for PCOD. You might have a girl who's a little overweight with irregular periods. She'll tell her parents and her friends, I can't help it, I have PCOD. No, you don't have PCOD. Just because the actress on the social blogger had PCOD or the influencer had PCOD, you don't have PCOD. You have to be diagnosed by an ultrasound by a good gynecologist or a sonologist, show you an ovary which having PCOD that size of an ovary. You have to have blood tests, you have to have insulin resistance and irregular periods and the other symptoms like hair growth, acne, hair fall, vagera, vagera. This is a criteria called the Rotterdam criteria. Only if you have that. You can't see your friend if she has a PCOS condition, you have the similar problem, you think you have PCOD. No, you have to be diagnosed accurately. We get every third patient with a report saying PCOD. No, it's just a fancy word. You have to have the following set of things to fit into that. Your treatment will only work if you have those things. You can't diagnose yourself and treat yourself. That's my only issue over here. But that answers your question, right?
It does. It's basically not enough proper diagnosis and people just doing the guessing game through so much of information that is available on the internet. Yeah. Okay, so Karishma, pretty much related to this, have you also seen an uptake in the number of people who are visiting you for chronic medical conditions as compared to just weight loss? And what are these, maybe say, top three medical conditions that you've seen people come to you for?
So number one would be with high cholesterol issues. Number two, which is completely got a lot of limelight right now, is our gut health. Where people think they're hyperacidic, but actually there's low acidity and stuff like that. So a lot of people were coming with that, and both of these have dramatically increased because of the stress levels. And third, something that is consistent from the time I probably have started my practice, and the graph is just going up, is PCOS. Because there are a lot of women who, do not even know that they actually have PCOS, because they think that their only irregular periods mean PCOS. There are a lot of other criteria, like Dr. Ankesh just actually, spoke about. So I think there's an entire reason why women have kind of realized, because there is acne, there are terrible mood swings, or then they're PMSing much more than normally, is why I think they've also come into the whole thing that they need to do something about their health rather than just weight loss. So I
Right.
think these
So
things, yeah.
Right. So basically, there definitely is a slight increase in the awareness, of targeting all these conditions through overall lifestyle and not just depending on
100%.
medicine.
Yeah, that's
Right.
right.
Right. So, so Dr. Natasha, coming to you, when it comes to chronic conditions, what are the three most, common chronic skin conditions that you've seen people come to you with, especially adult women?
Okay, so when it comes to skin and hair, the three most common conditions that I see, one is acne. The second is a hair issue. It could be a hair loss, it could be a hair thinning, and the third one would be pigmentation. And if you actually look at this triad, this is a triad that we see even in PCOS. So 1 in 8 of everyone that I see always has an underlying PCOS issue. And at the end of it, if we, if we go to basics and we say, what is PCOS? It is an endocrine abnormality, which means that, just because you have PCOS doesn't mean that, you will have an irregular period, or you might not be skipping periods. You could even have like just acne, pigmentation, hair loss. You could, as Dr. Ankesh said, you could have a high insulin level. Your sonography might be normal, but your blood test might be showing something else. So the three most common conditions that I see actually go hand in hand with the PCOS issue. And even if the girl is not, a polycystic ovarian in that category, they definitely have some underlying endocrine or hormonal imbalance going on. And that hormone doesn't have to be just your female hormones or your male hormones. They could be your stress hormones. It could be the irregular sleep cycle that you're having. It could, and most of it, I mean, my acne, your hair loss, and the pigmentation is completely dependent on the food that you eat and the lifestyle that you go through. So definitely, yes, these are the three most common, and they all have a correlation with your lifestyle, diet, and PCOS.
Right. So, pretty much connected to what you just said, like how all these conditions are more or less related to the food you're putting into your body, the lifestyle that you're leading. So, how much of your treatment plan generally is dependent on, one's lifestyle when it comes to especially these conditions?
I would definitely say that at least 75% is your lifestyle change. See, when you have a condition like acne or hair loss, you're going to take medication for maybe 1 month or 2 months. But what's going to keep that at bay, and prevent a relapse is your lifestyle change. So if you're someone who's too anxious or who stresses too much, whatever you do, you're going to experience oily skin and you're going to experience that hair loss. So if we don't tackle that by yoga or just listening to music or reading a book or taking time out for yourself, definitely, I mean, none of these conditions can be cured or treated or even kept at bay if we don't concentrate on the lifestyle aspect.
Right, right. So yeah, I mean, so even when people come to you particularly for these damages that have been done, at the end of the day, if they're not willing to make certain changes to the lifestyle, that medicine cannot really help them after a point, right? Yeah. So, so coming back to you, Dr. Ankesh, how do you, I mean, what is your first approach to a patient who comes to you with a diagnosis of PCOS, who has been correctly diagnosed with PCOS?
Thank you for the correction of the question. Yeah. So very, very honestly, people are well read. The ones who come diagnosed correctly are quite accurate. Girls are very smart. So they have all the internet, all the good searches ready. And I'm like, fine, I have to be very careful. So she'll come with a file saying, Doctor, my dermat has advised me to go for this therapy for my skin or some laser therapy. But she wants to check my PCOS hormones. I'm so happy. I love those dermats. Natasha is listening.
I completely agree. I send all my patients to two people, a nutritionist and a gynecologist. So, and I don't want to try around with hormone therapy or anything. You guys do your job, I'll do mine.
I like that. So, Sakshi, back to you.
Mm.
So immediately when they come, I take a detailed menstrual history. I ask about the last period. I ask about if any periods have been missed. Then I go into the history of, how's the flow? Has the flow become very scanty or very heavy? Is the period cycle beyond 35 days? Now that's the catch. If a girl gets a period within 35 days, she is not having irregular periods. If she gets her periods within 35 days and above 28 days, she is absolutely fine. She has to be told that. They're so happy, when these patients hear that, oh, I don't have PCOD, they're so happy. So if a periods are above 35 days, then of course we just ask questions regarding the acne, hair growth. We have the Ferriman Galway scoring system, the back, chest, around the nipples, abdomen, things like that. The facial hair pattern growth around the face, chin, upper lip, lower lip, all that is okay. Now, if she has the acne, the hair growth, the irregular periods beyond 35 days, and she even comments about the things like weight gain over the course of time. She the ultrasound have already done. We don't repeat it again over here. We ask, very important is we ask for breast tenderness and any nipple discharge. A nipple discharge is the clinching criteria. Prolactin is raised in nipple discharge. That's the end of discussion. That means prolactin is raised with all this. It's a definite PCOD. So the idea for me is to correct her periods. Correcting her periods, we have to induce a regular period if she's missed a period. We use progesterone tablets, we get her a regular period. After a regular period, we investigate her for blood tests on the second day of the period. Always it's day 2, 3, or the last day is day 4. The hormones are LH, FSH, prolactin, and thyroid. If she has any pigmentation, severe weight gain, we add in insulin. If she has hair growth, we add in the entire male androgens, which is testosterone, androstenedione, 17-OH, the list goes on. So after we do all the hormones, we call her back to the reports. If the hormone levels are imbalanced, we treat her for the imbalanced hormones. You can't let a patient be absolutely on hormones or tablets, as Natasha said. Maximum 3 months or to the top 6 months. Simultaneously, she has to go to a very nice nutritionist like Karishma. There she's. So Karishma starts taking care of her diet. It has to be a diet which is obviously a little low carb, high protein, but I don't get into the details. I leave it to the nutritionist. Whatever they do is best. If the patient is losing 10 to 15% of her body weight in 6 months along with the medication, I'm talking about patients who are 120, 130 kg. Yeah? I get that kind of patients over here at my practice. Like a patient who's 85, 90 is thin for me. So these patients, if they can lose 15% of their body weight along with their regular medications and their diet and a good amount of exercise, my job is done. In my experience, if a moderately overweight woman with missed periods and PCOD loses 15% of body weight, if she's 100 and becomes 85, she starts getting spontaneous periods. But if a woman doesn't lose enough weight and is relying only on the birth control pills and metformin and no diet, no exercise, she will not get anything. You have to work hard for anything good in life. Nothing good comes cheap. So hard work is definitely your diet and your exercise. And of course, I would say 3 to 6 months of hormonal tablets with metformin. If you can do that much, you are sorted. But it all happens simultaneously. Weight loss is a part of, this is what I call as my lifestyle modification, which is an 80% or 70% diet. Diet is 75% of weight loss. And the remaining is your sleep and your exercise. You can cheat on your sleep, you can cheat on your exercise, but you can't cheat on your diet. You have to be very, very sincere. And you require motivation, you require someone to push you up, a partner, a parent, a sibling, a spouse, whatever you have. So motivation is the key, and things really work out for you if you work hard.
Right, right. That sounds great. Just one follow-up question there, since we're talking about, normal cycles. So like you said, if somebody is getting their period between 28 and 35 days, that is considered normal, right? Even if the date varies.
I'll tell you what the truth is. If you get your period within 21 days, within 21,
Hmm.
or you get it beyond 35, it's not normal. So 21 ke baad and 35 ke pehle is a normal period. I want to break this myth. Now I have some patients who come to me all the way for a follow-up. I mean, it's good for me, not bad for me. I won't lie. They come and say, I got my period 5 days early, 5 days late. But it doesn't matter. If you got your period within 35 days and not before 21 days, you are absolutely fine. Go be normal. Don't read Google. Don't ask your girlfriends. Ask a gynac or read a medical textbook.
Right. Fair enough. Fair enough. So, Karishma, so now that we were talking about, diets, how your lifestyle is 70 to 80% your diet, and then of course the rest
Yeah.
of the things. Of course, one diet doesn't fit everybody, but is there a thumb rule or certain, 3 or 4 practices that you have to inculcate once you get on your journey of healthy eating, or once you start modifying your diet towards the healthy approach? Are there any thumb rules that has like absolutely have to be followed?
So like you rightly said, there is not like one diet that fits all. So I completely endorse this entire philosophy of, the concept of bio individuality, which basically means if somebody, a lot of women come to me and they tell me, my friend or, boy is actually, doing a vegan diet and has lost a lot of weight, and I need to do the same thing. So just prescribe that diet. Now, what we try to get to that person's attention is that you're like you said, there's just not one diet that fits all, because maybe the person's body does not even respond to it, and then you feel that something is not working and then you're demotivated. So I think there has to be a certain amount of awareness when it comes to the fact that you just can't pick up something, like exactly how Rankesh said, right? That even if you want to know something about PCOS, meet an expert, or probably look at a medical text, because literally Google is for information, it's not knowledge. It's people like us who are right here waiting to help you, and probably we're just the chosen ones, right? So the entire idea is, yes, firstly you need to meet somebody and create that entire awareness around you and the people around you. Now again, when it comes to the approach, right? So initially we had a lot of weight loss approach, which is predominantly a lot of muscle loss that happens. So exactly how Ankesh said, that you have to be on a low carb plan, but interestingly at the same time be on a moderate to a high kind of protein. So the few things that I would talk about would be that firstly, stop, looking at your entire journey about losing weight on the scale. It should be more like fat loss, where your clothes can tell you, you looking in the mirror can tell you, or literally you should start feeling lighter and more energized. So what you could really concentrate on would be firstly eating every 2 to 4 hours, because that helps you with keeping your metabolism in at place. And you can also try an IFs, because what I've really noticed with a lot of women with PCOS, because we're trying to get their insulin more sensitized as compared to, because they're resistant, intermittent fasting works fantastically for them. So depending upon your case, you could either do every 2 to 4 hours or go into intermittent fasting. Secondly, essentially, you need 3 to 5 servings of protein in a day. And you basically target anywhere between 15 to 20 grams. So that is literally your palm size. It's not much. So there your sources could be your eggs, chicken, or fish. I try going low on dairy when it comes to a lot of PCOS clients, because that definitely gives you an insulin spike. And because of the hormonal condition, that's where the acne comes up. So that is something that we try to kind of go down. So in short, say if I give you a bowl of dal that was also protein, but it's giving you carbs right there too. So then I would rather give you a vegan protein for that. So just ensure that you're having good amount of protein. Something that actually should be included would be thermogenic foods when it comes to your fiber. So I would definitely stress on like minimum 8 servings of fiber. That would be 1 to 2 servings of your fruits, and preferably in the first half of the day. And the rest can be your soups, salads, and your veggies. So I think these three things are very, very important. Something in terms of lifestyle that I would love to emphasize would basically be acupuncture. A lot, the hormonal cases work fantastic for them, even for gut health as well. And of course, your sleep. and a complete positive self-image. Because when we start thinking that we have an issue, there's an underlying concern, we are actually agonizing our body a lot. We're talking very negatively. So the healing is not going to take place if you don't accept the way you are. I think that's the game changer. So the more positively you think about yourself, accept the condition, and actually ask for help, is that's what's going to change everything for you. So I think that's what needs to change, in terms of about how you actually look at your case today.
Right, right. Instead of telling yourself you are not okay or you have a problem, just look at it as an improvisation on yourself and not something that you're lacking. So yeah, I think that sort of attitude, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Dr. Natasha, continuing with I mean, we've spoken about the diet aspect of it. We've spoken about the medical aspect of, the gynecology aspect of PCOS. What about the damages that are done to, that happen to your skin and hair in terms of acne scars or pigmentation, facial hair, or even baldness? How does one approach the damage that has already been done? Is it reversible? Can your skin and hair be improved once your PCOS has caused quite a lot of damage?
Of course, yes, most definitely it can. The main reason why PCOS is called a lifestyle disorder is because if you correct your lifestyle, you're able to reverse a lot of changes that you see when you were going through PCOS. Actually, a very easy way to explain this is that, the most important part when it comes to your skin and when it comes to your hair is your hair root. Now, your hair root is there on your scalp. That's from where your hair is coming out. And you have a lot of sebaceous glands and hair roots on your face as well. That's from where all your oil is secreted. That's from where the tiny baby hairs grow. Now, what happens in PCOS is that your hair root is very sensitive to a hormone imbalance. So even the slightest change in your hormones, it could be diet induced, it could be lifestyle induced, stress induced, or it could be an underlying disorder induced. You could have a thyroid issue, you could have sugar, you could have PCOS. It's directly going to go and first affect that hair root of yours. So when it affects your hair root, what happens is that root starts shrinking in size. And because of that shrinking, you notice thinning of hair, because once your root shrinks, there's no opening and no hair is going to come out. The same thing happens on your skin as well. Now, obviously the roots on your scalp are more sensitive to your hormone changes than the ones on your face. So it's actually very opposite and diverging. On the scalp, you'll notice a thinning of hair, but on your face, you'll notice an increase in hair growth. And basically, that's because it's very sensitive to your testosterone, which is your male hormone. And as we know, males, what happens to males first? As they age, you'll notice thinning along the sides of their hair. So that's what females are going to notice too. Males have a little oilier skin because they have more androgens that are produced, so you're going to notice that your skin's a little more oily. And as males have beard hair, you're going to start noticing hair on your jawline, on your upper lip, even on your chin area. You're going to grow your hair, and that's the same changes that happens even after menopause, when your female hormones go down and your androgens are in play. So yes, they are reversible, but they're not completely reversible. And the key here is to treat it as early as possible. So the first time, you might not have an irregular period, you might not have thinning of hair, but you'll just notice that, okay, I've started growing hair on my chin. Or you might notice that I'm tanning more easily and I've started noticing pigmentation around my eyes and on my cheeks. Those are the first signs of an underlying endocrine abnormality that you're seeing. Now, for dermatology or for your skin and hair, it's not necessary only PCOS, but I'd like to emphasize on a term which is known as insulin resistance, which actually plays a very big role in your PCOS, but it also plays a very big role on your skin and hair. And a lot of girls come in saying, that my periods are regular, I have no thinning of hair, but I notice these dark, you'll notice pigmentation on the back of your neck, your underarms are very dark, your groins are very dark, and you might even notice more hair around your belly button or on your face, as I mentioned earlier. So these are the starting signs where it's basically showing that yes, there is some insulin resistance that's happening in your body, and that is all curable with the diet that you're doing. But if you don't notice them and you ignore them and you're like, acha, okay, they're going to become better with time, I'm going to diet, I'm going to try this big crash diet for 1 week and then it's all going to be fine, you're just ignoring it. And it's actually, it's like the tip of the iceberg. You're noticing this, but below in your body, there are so many changes that are going on. Unfortunately, with acne scarring, you can never get your skin back to completely normal like how it was before. But yes, you can improve, the texture and the consistency of your skin. And as I said, the minute you notice that first pimple that's popping up on your face, go get it checked from a dermatologist, not someone random. There are a lot of people, specifically, in today's time, homeopaths, Ayurveda doctors who, no doubt they do have knowledge and they're doing what they do best, but it's not medically for the skin. They've not studied the skin like how we've studied the skin. So I think noticing your changes the minute you first see them is the most important. And yes, then they are reversible. But if you continue going on like that for 6 months, 1 year, ignore it for 4, 5 years, the chances of you going back to how you were is very less.
Yeah, so the key is to nip it in the bud before
Exactly.
it reaches a point where you can't really reverse it. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Dr. Ankesh, this is for you. So when is taking medication for PCOS a requirement and not a choice? Because there has been a lot of conversation about choosing medicine along with lifestyle changes, or just going the medicinal route. So when do you think it becomes a requirement and not just a choice? I think Dr. Ankesh is experiencing a bad network. Okay, maybe we can continue with the next question, and I'll just check on Dr. Ankesh. So, Karishma, why don't you cover some of the most recommended foods for PCOS? Now that we are talking about PCOS, maybe say 5 things you would absolutely recommend for anybody who is correctly diagnosed with PCOS.
Okay, so I think my first would be, okay, he's back. Would you want to tell him to do that?
I think we can just go with this question and then go back to Dr. Ankesh.
After you, Karishma. Sorry, I got a call in the middle. Sorry.
No worries.
Okay, so once you're already diagnosed with PCOS, just to repeat what we did in the approach earlier, we got to indefinitely be in a low carb plan, very strict, and ditch your simple carbs. That means literally your white rice and even something like your lotus stem, the makhana that people think are really good, but they actually give you the insulin spike, that insulin resistance, something that Natasha was talking about. So definitely we got to be very clear about your complex carbs. I would definitely ask people to drop gluten. Okay, so that you remove the gluten out. And very importantly, try to keep a food journal to understand if you're allergic to any food, because that again is a game changer in terms of, because whenever you eat anything that you're allergic to, there's going to be inflammation in the body. And when we know this PCOS, there's already a low level inflammation. So anything that's incorrect, which is ingested, can actually trigger it off. So on one side, you're trying to take the medication, trying to do your yoga, everything, but it's not going to holistically work, because if something that you're eating is not in aligned with your body. Second, very importantly, is your proteins. Now, a protein is also very important because they are the raw materials for the high quality hormones that are produced in the body. So again, the sources that we spoke about earlier. With this, also what is very important is a moderate amount of high quality fats. So that's where your olive oil, rice bran oil, your ghee, coconut oil, avocado, raw nuts and seeds, all of them come in. Very importantly, omega-3 fatty acids, because they help you with sensitizing your insulin again. So that would be your walnuts, your fatty fish, chia seeds, flax seeds, and you could also take your fish oil supplements or your vegan supplements as well. Very importantly, what is to actually stabilize your blood sugar levels. So that's where your magnesium rich foods come in. That's your sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, cashew nuts, your almonds, and a lot of green leafy vegetables along with your avocados. Something that I would love to emphasize would be your gut friendly foods, because now we do know there's a direct connection between your gut, and your hormones, because they're closely really connected. So very importantly, your fermented vegetables, the simple jars that we made at home, our grandmoms always made these simple pickles. I'm sure all our grandmas have made it. They all are back. And now we also use a fancy term for it, because instead of saying like fermented cabbage, it's basically solar sauerkraut. But we can make all of these at home. If you don't have help, then it's also available in the market, but just choose the right one. So it's your fermented vegetables. You can You could also make kefir. That's again a fermented drink at home, but it's very, very easy to make. Now, the most important thing is the way we require food to eat, so are the gut bacteria that live within us. So one way to actually get them is your fermented foods. And how do you help them thrive is by the prebiotics. So that is basically your foods that are high in fiber. So that's again where whole grains come in. A lot of high fiber fruits come in, a lot of vegetables come in, and more specifically, you have onion, garlic, asparagus, leek, and Jerusalem artichoke. So idea is that you completely eat this on a regular basis to keep sure that you're feeding your gut well. And another organ that actually helps for detoxification of the extra estrogen built up that usually also happens with PCOS is your liver. So ideally indulge a lot into green leafy vegetables, especially your cruciferous vegetables, your fruits like your apple, blueberries, your citrus fruits like oranges. So one thing that I ask everybody, okay, to start their day with would be a vegetable smoothie. So that can be as simple as your kale or your spinach, add throw in an apple or a pear in it, or even your blueberries with chia seeds or flax seeds. So what essentially does is helps with detoxification. It's a powerhouse of energy. And we now even do know that, within 1 hour of waking up, we should try avoiding your caffeine. That's what we're all used to, because that actually creates an havoc on your adrenal glands. And again, the entire PCOS is closely linked to all of these. So ideally finish having your vegetable juice, get that whole increase in metabolism, eat in your breakfast, and then have in your cafe. So I think if, we collectively do these 3-4 things, daily, I'm sure the PCOS will really be in control.
Right. Right. That was super comprehensive. That was really good. Thanks, Karishma.
Thank you.
Dr. Ankesh, so we were discussing about the whole, the medication bit of PCOS. So when do you think medication becomes a requirement in a PCOS situation more than a choice?
Basically, if a girl is not getting her own spontaneous periods and she wants to eventually conceive, or even not conceive but just get her periods, she has to take medication. The medication is primarily required to make the hormones balanced again. The two hormones are LH and FSH. For that, eventually you require birth control pills only. There are various kinds of birth control pills. If you want only regular periods, if you want regular periods with acne care, with your obesity, there are pills that contain medicines that help remove the water retention. There are pills that support the acne treatment. They could be drospirenone based or cyproterone acetate based. So depending on the patient's primary complaint, you have to give the right OC pill. Then if the patient has a very high insulin, as Natasha mentioned, insulin resistance, she'll have symptoms of weight gain, central obesity. She'll have obesity at the abdomen and the side flanks and the hips. So that is when she requires, she'll also have pigmentation, which is called acanthosis nigricans. Then she'll require high doses of metformin with myoinositol and D-chiro-inositol. So I would say, depending on your hormones and your inability to get periods on your own, you'll require medications till then. And as I mentioned earlier, once you lose that 15% of your body weight and get spontaneous periods, you can gradually remove the medication one by one. But the lifestyle modification, the diet, the exercise, and the whole idea of being disciplined remains forever.
Right. So once you drop that 15% of weight is when you're you can reach the zone of making it a choice.
Majority of the cases I've seen 15% body weight, when they've actually lost it, then they usually get periods on their own. Of course, now for a patient who's 120 kgs, 15% is not enough. I'm talking of a general case, which is 80 by 90 kgs. They really do well after this.
Right. Of course, there are going to be variations from case to case basis, right? So now that you briefly mentioned about the whole conceiving aspect also. So how do you approach the treatment of a woman who has PCOS, but is more concerned about, like, her primary concern is conceiving more than controlling all her PCOS symptoms?
So very, very important. So now this is a little broad answer. So now when you have PCOD, you have a lot of number of follicles. Just showing you this. Your ovary is full of eggs and follicles. But in PCOD, it's more about the quality than the quantity. They'll have a lot of number of eggs, the large ovary with number of cysts. But many of these follicles are empty. There's no egg inside them. So the challenge remains, how do you get them to ovulate? Because ovulation is not happening in PCOD. It's anovulatory. There's no ovulation phase. Number one. Number two, if she does ovulate on her own, does the follicle contain an egg? Could be an empty follicle. Number three, If she ovulates, there's an egg. It could be a poor quality egg. So again, the birth control pills make your periods regular. A. Number two, once the birth control pills have stopped, she should get spontaneous periods. Once she gets spontaneous periods, she might require a little help, something called as ovulation induction, where we start medications on the second day of the period, and the doctor sees the patient, serially on day 8, day 10, day 12. He follows her by sonography up to her ovulation. If all is well, if she's been on folic acid, preconceptional folic acid, the DHA, and she's been taking metformin, myoinositol, and she's having a good healthy diet, you can't emphasize the importance of diet more than this. She has to have a good healthy diet, a lot of fruits, vegetables. Of course, Karishma and will give you the better details than me. But if the diet has been good, she's been taking good multivitamins, folic acid, DHA, things like that, then she has to try to conceive soon. Because let's be honest, when you have PCOD, you've been trying for a while. Getting my point. You haven't been someone who's just trying. So you must have lost a year, 2 years, sometimes 3 years. So before reaching the eventuality of IVF and ART, if you can try to conceive with little ovulation induction will only work if you have regular periods. If the husband's sperm parameters are good, his sperm quality is good, if your PCOD is well controlled, your weight is under control now, you should not have an issue conceiving in PCOD at all. But it's very important to counsel the patients. Patients who have infertility and PCOD require a little extra empathy. You have to understand what the patient's going through. It's not easy, being sitting across a doctor and taking out questions on what mistakes they made. No, you have to motivate someone. You have to correct that their lifestyle is motivated, not more depressed because of meeting you. And once everything is in order, you have to just motivate them to see you more often. You can show them the sonography images while doing it on the follicle growth, the ovulation timing, and that's when you get more motivation psychologically, and you can even get a good result hopefully in a couple of months.
Right. Right. So empathy definitely is key. And secondly, what I understood is that even if the major concern is conceiving, you have to focus on the lifestyle aspect as well. It cannot be. Yeah. All right. So, Dr. Natasha, one last question for you. What are some of the regular checkups one should undergo to ensure health and skin? I mean, we talk about various aspects, right, of health, but I think skin and hair is something that people probably only tend to when they see certain signs. But is there something that you could keep a regular check on to make sure that you experience healthy skin and hair throughout?
I think in today's digital age, everyone's so active on social media, including teenagers as low as, 12 and 13 as well. And the most common thing I see actually these days is a lot of girls come in saying, oh, I saw this product online, or my friend tried this product and I want to try it too. Or I saw this, some blogger, some influencer advised me to use it, but it just broke me out or something happened. So I just feel that, if you have normal skin, if you're not facing any issue, one, visit to a dermatologist when you're a teenager. So that's basically between, 13 and 20. And then one when you're in your 20s and one for your 30s. So these are the normal times when you should see a dermatologist. Why? Because your skin keeps changing with age and you have to keep changing your skincare routine. And, with this compulsive buying mentality that a lot of people have in today's time, it actually does more damage to your skin than good. If you find a product that suits you, stick to it. Like I've been using the same sunscreen for years together, and there are so many new molecules in the market, but this suited my skin, so I'm sticking to it. And the same thing goes with your hair and, other products, moisturizers, or whatever you're using on your body, especially with shampoos. There are so many myths coming in saying that, if I change my shampoo, my hair fall is going to reduce. No, changing your shampoo is not going to reduce your hair fall. Yes, it could, make your hair less frizzy. It could make it look smoother. It could have something that's strengthening your hair, like keratin in it, but it's not going to reduce your hair fall. So I think the first major thing is don't believe everything that you see online. And yes, go do visit your doctor once every decade. Now, when it comes to PCOS specifically, what happens is because of the continuous damage that's going on in your body, like we all know that, if you have a thyroid problem, you're going to experience dry skin all your life. Or if you're someone who has oily skin, you can break out all your life, whether you're in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s. So keeping a regular check, as I mentioned, every decade. Also, I would just like to emphasize on a few tests that we find very important. So one is your vitamin D3 and vitamin B12. A lot of people are deficient, a lot of people are not deficient. So one is get it checked. It's better to know, do it periodically every year or every 2 years. Even if you're just, popping in those pills randomly, still get it checked. The second two blood tests that I find very important, one is your HbA1c, which is your sugar average for 3 months. So if you're someone in your late 20s, a little overweight, and you're facing pigmentation, or you've just increased on sudden weight gain, I would say get your HbA1c checked. And the last one is insulin. For me, insulin is very important because this hormone targets everything. It's the cause of your hair fall, it could be the cause of your pigmentation, and it could be the cause for your acne as well. So one is going to your doctor every decade, getting these checks in place. And I think Karishma gave a beautiful, she just kind of like covered all the dietary things that we need to keep in mind. But I'd just like to add one more as well, is dairy. Now, dairy affects your skin on a very huge level, in the sense that not only does it have a lot of IGF growth factors that are seen in the cow's milk, but also a lot of androgens which are naturally present in animal milk. So something that I like to tell my patients is, one is cut down on the animal dairy that you're having, and maybe, you could opt for more plant-based milks. Because yes, that does have an impact not only on your acne, but even if you have dandruff, if you have oily skin, if you have a pigmentation tendency, if you have hair fall also, it does matter. And most of my patients that come in happy are the ones that have followed my lifestyle changes. For 1 month, they'll come in, and even though, two people will have identical prescriptions, the ones who have followed these 3 diet changes that I've told them, no dairy, gluten-free, and no processed food, or no high glycemic index foods, they are the happiest one. They, even though they have that acne and that pigmentation is still there, it's not started clearing, but they have that glow on their face, they feel lighter, they feel better. And I think there's a big mind-body connection with it as well. So yes, I think instead of just going online randomly and picking up product suggestions, etc., I think visit a dermatologist. She'll give you something, or he or she will give you something for your skin, which is curated for specifically your skin personally.
Right. Definitely visit your dermat at least once a decade. That's what we are taking back from here. Okay. Just one last question for Karishma, then we have a quick, very fun, rapid fire round plan for all our experts, and then we will take up a few questions from our participants. So whoever has questions, please feel free to post it in the chat box. So Karishma, just one last question, especially given what we've discussed about, lifestyle changes, being consistent with them. How do you deal with clients who, are more of a 1 month on, 1 month off kind of, who have that sort of mindset where they want to be on a strict diet for a while, then take a break, then go back? Do you think it causes any long-term side effects, any eating disorders, or, are an hindrance to seeing progress?
Definitely they are, because what really happens is, when you lose some amount of weight, especially if not done very rightly, when you gain back, you're only gaining fat percentage. So that could actually, create a havoc on your hormonal health, a lot of gut health, and eventually lead to a lot of imbalanced blood parameters. And also then that they are okay and lax with the fact, because they're looking at diet as a quick fix and not a lifestyle. So luckily for clients like this, is what I do is I kind of put on my life coach hat on, and that's the time when I kind of deal with this with a lot of nutrition counseling that actually gets into. So there are 2 ways to look at it. Firstly is, whenever I have any client that coming in, at least 20 minutes really go into nutrition counseling, where I try to get deep into the entire matter. Why is weight loss important for them? So it may be that you just want to look great because it's your wee day, or because you just want to, you're just basically going to Greece for a holiday, and you want to wear the most awesome bikini there. But nonetheless, why is this very, very important for you? And that's where you get to attach a very strong intrinsic factor, that'll help the person not only to lose weight, but also goes a long way in sustaining that weight loss or perhaps the fat loss as to be. That is number one. The number two, that what I have really realized is, like I said before, that your weight management is not only determined by the food you eat, but actually a balance in a in different fields of life. So if somebody has poor sleep, or somebody is into a toxic relationship, there is a lot that happens with me, because for half an hour I'm literally listening to a client, trying to understand what is going wrong, and then just listening to them is healing for them. And that's what the game changer is. And then in case they're okay with it, we go deeper down to you try to get to solutions why this is becoming actually an hindrance in their fat loss plan. So I think when I look at it more holistically, getting both these angles together is when I know I'm in a win-win situation with the client, because then the client realizes it, that your diet is more a lifestyle and not like a quick fix. So when somebody tells me kitna time diet I have to do, so I just simply just give them one question. I say, when you wake up in the morning, aren't you pooping every day? Aren't you like going and freshening up? So why is it like, why, what is a diet the big deal? Because the
Right.
idea is it is a lifestyle. So the more you accept nature, the more you accept the way things are, I think the better you will be. The very fact you're coming to me with a problem, that means आपका diet नहीं काम कर रहा है, right? So what
Right.
you're doing is not working. That is diet. What you'll do with me is your lifestyle. So I think
Right.
that's what goes a long way with these people.
The whole correction mindset needs to come
Yeah.
in more than doing something completely different from what you've been doing. Right. Great. Those were some amazing answers that we received from all of you guys, and there was a really comprehensive discussion. I would be shooting some rapid fire questions at all of you now. So I think let's start with Dr. Natasha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the first part is I'd be giving you a couple of statements and that people generally say, and you would have to tell me how would you react to those statements. So the first one is, if somebody tells you, I don't need sunscreen if I'm sitting at home.
Are
What's
you
your-
in a coffin? No, of course you need sunscreen. Sunscreen's like water. But yes, you
Fair
need
enough.
sunscreen at home everywhere. Yes.
Right. Everyone with PCOS suffer from excess acne.
Where are you getting your information from?
Right. Okay, so the next is so this is like a this or that question. Clinical products or homemade remedies for skincare.
Clinical products.
3 easy ways to remove facial hair caused due to PCOS.
Laser is the easiest. Second would be shaving your face. So use a single blade shaving. Third would be trimming. I don't like to suggest waxing or epilating because you're pulling it from the follicle. That friction and that trauma process also causes a lot of pigmentation in the future. Inflammation, basically. So yes.
Got it. How many times should you apply sunscreen if you're going out?
If you're not going out, if you're at home, wherever you are, you need to apply sunscreen every 3 to 4 hours. So that's at least 3 to 4 times in a day. And at night, if you're someone, a lot of kids put their blankets up or they put the lights off and they're on their phones continuously, then yes, definitely once in the night, you can mix it in with your moisturizer.
So whether you're going in or going out, like staying in or going out, 3-4 times is minimum. Yes. Last is 3 tips for clear skin. 3 tips you swear by.
Stay away from your food triggers, sunscreen daily, and don't try random products on your face.
Awesome. All right. So let's go with Karishma now. Again, the first part would be statements that you hear from people and how do you react to them. So if somebody says, I don't have time for diet and workout. that's I think we all got our answer. PCOS is just an excuse to be lazy.
Of course it is.
I don't think I got the answer. Can we have a little explanation there?
The deal is that a lot of people think that they have a free ticket to have fun in life when they accept PCOS as thyroid. It's normal for them to think like that. The more I tell them, yeah, it is, then they're like, okay, tell me, what do I do next? And then they're desperate. So
Right.
that's how I use that line.
Got it. All right. So again, this is again a this or that thing. Whole fruits or juices?
Whole fruits. They're low in sugar.
Right. Supplementation through food or tablets?
I think both.
Okay, as and when required. I think we lost you. Karishma,
Absolutely.
I think we lost you there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Next would be 3 sources
Can you
of
hear me now?
calcium. Yes, we can hear you. So 3 sources of calcium for a dairy-free diet. Karishma, you're breaking up a little, I think.
So ideally, you could stick to green leafy vegetables if soy suits you a little. And a lot of nuts and seeds will also have some amount of calcium in it, so which you could take that. I would really emphasize it's eat like, if you just eat whole real foods, you'll be taken care of otherwise as well.
Fair enough. All right. And 3 sources of protein for a vegetarian diet. Very common question, very important question.
So one very important thing is actually to combine your vegetarian sources, banana rice, khichdi, you actually are completing the amino acid profile. So that is number 1. Okay. The other thing that I would recommend is to get onto a vegan protein. Because when we're looking at PCOS, we are looking at the carbohydrate load. So I just can't keep giving you a lot of carbohydrates then. And like I said, a lot of wholesome foods will have protein, carbs, and fats. So if you just eat wholesome foods, you're anyway getting that. You're taking a strategic approach to the idea of combining foods. And thirdly, just stick to your vegan protein powders.
Right. Got it. So that's it for you. Moving on to Dr. Ankesh. Again, starting with 2 commonly heard statements. Women with PCOS cannot get pregnant.
Rubbish. They can get pregnant, they can have twins also.
All gynecologists prescribe medicines.
More or less, yeah, when they need to. I mean, I wouldn't say no, but they more or less they do.
Fair enough. Okay. Three practices for good vaginal hygiene.
Oh, very good. Don't do anything much. Don't douche. Don't have to insert anything at all. Just have a regular. You can have an oral probiotic. Vaginal probiotics are oral tablets, and if you're sexually active or if you have multiple sexual partners, then even more so. But an annual or a 6-monthly gynac checkup is good enough. Nothing extra to do, and don't go off the internet and do what you did on the internet. Just listen to your gynac. Don't do anything on your own.
Absolutely, listen to your gynac. Yes. 3 assumptions you want to bust about PCOS.
So the 3 assumptions are very. I don't think I have so many assumptions I've heard. I've had patients telling me that, doctor, I've taken the medications and all, but I had a chocolate cake I had a chocolate pastry, the entire pastry in the evening, and then I had the metformin tablet. I'm like, then too I'm not losing weight. And I had a patient who mentioned that I went for a 4-hour-long walk. 4-hour-long walk. And I've happened to follow her on social media, and there are 4 posts in the 4-hour-long walk. So how can this be an exercise if you're going to stop and take a picture and post of yourself? No. It has to be a 1-hour walk where you actually focus on yourself. And again, a lot of myths about the diet and about rice and no rice and roti and the whole thing. But again, this is all the internet stuff they read. So the list goes on and on. There are various myths.
Again, I think coming back to listen to your experts, don't Google.
Yeah.
So you have an interesting question here. Most ridiculous thing a patient has told you after referring to Dr. Google.
Oh, me. Oh, I have so many. So I gave a patient a painkiller once, and the painkiller has a side effect. If you have 20 tablets in a day, if you have 20 in a day, you can get kidney failure. Okay. If you take 20 Combiplams. So I give her the painkiller to take twice a day for 5 days after meals with an antacid. And she comes to me and says, doctor, what is this you gave me? You don't know what this does? I'm like, oh no, what does it do? And she carries like 15 pages printout, color printout from Google link. and she circled with yellow color highlighter about the kidney failure. Doctor, what is wrong? What if something happens to my kidney? So I'm like, anything happened to you? You took it once. I took it once, and my boyfriend Googled it for me last night. I was like, very good. Your boyfriend will only prescribe you what to take. You go to him only. So these things happen to me very often.
I agree. I completely agree with you too. Every day you will see someone or the other coming in with the same thing.
Yeah, I get many Dr. Google questions.
Okay, just the last one. 3 non-PCOS reasons for period irregularity.
Oh yeah. So basically, the notorious emergency contraceptive, which is called the I pill or the pill 72, it's the most notorious reason why women have irregular periods. It's the most common reason why women require to go to a gynac is the emergency pill. Then very commonly is the fibroids. You have intrauterine fibroids, you have submucosal fibroids, uterine polyps, submucosal polyps. They have to be scanned on sonography very well. So the polyps, the emergency pill, the I pill, and sometimes when you have bad pelvic infection, PID it's called, you can have acyclic and irregular bleeding. That's on the high rise with early sexual debut and no precautions and multiple sexual partners. We see a lot of acyclic irregular bleeding.
Got it. So definitely need to consider all factors and not just blame PCOS for everything.
Yeah, you can't blame that all the time.
Okay, so that was a great round. We just have a few questions that we'll quickly take up in the next 5 minutes. And yeah, so the first question here is there anything to cure PCOS or irregular periods without medication?
Lifestyle modification.
Yeah. I think that was the crux of the discussion anyway. Again, reiterating it. Yes.
Don't have junk food, exercise every day, and just be a good girl. I mean, like, just eat healthy and sleep well and have a lot of waters, I would say, and focus on your health.
Right. Second is, I have done the blood test. I'm having good hemoglobin, but having low iron level and ferritin level, along with low level of vitamin D. I'm having PCOS and fibroid and getting periods in 35 days regularly, and currently having homeopathy medicine. I want to improve iron and vitamin D level. Above all, normal BMI and normal sugar levels.
Oh, you're awesome. You're awesome.
So iron and D.
So any good iron supplement, any source of iron is jaggery, green leafy vegetables, egg, any good protein source to go with that. If you eat non-veg, there's fish, there's salmon, but any good iron source, food source along with an iron supplement is good enough. And you can take the iron supplement always after a meal. Never take it before a meal, otherwise you get acidity.
Right. Karishma, would you like to add some vegetarian sources of iron here that somebody can consume? Given that the person who asked the question is a vegetarian. So, yeah. I think Karishma's video was a little stuck. Maybe we can continue with this question. Karishma, your video is a little stuck. We lost you. We couldn't hear you.
Yeah, sorry. So what was the question again?
Yeah. The same question about increasing your iron levels. So what would be some food sources, some vegetarian food sources for iron, for increasing your iron levels?
So it's technically a green leafy vegetables, and the trick here would be to actually add a dash of lime, so it could increase your iron absorption. So that's what you could do, and you could also go a little more one step ahead, but cooking into iron utensils. Something again that we've done it in our olden days, but we could still get that practice back in.
Got it. I think that's something not many people know, probably cooking in iron utensils. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Next would be, can we go for laser treatment if PCOS has not yet been reversed? Dr. Natasha maybe can take up this question.
Yes, most definitely you can. It's just the only difference would be that, you need a few more sessions, and just consider that like you're waxing or threading, you're doing it every month. So you continue doing it every month. And as soon as your hormonal imbalance comes into check, you won't need further more sessions. You'll just need maintenance sessions after that. So typically a normal person would need about 5 to 6 sessions of laser. You would need maybe 10 to 12. That's the difference.
Understood. Next would be women with insulin resistance should avoid too much sugar. But what about artificial sweeteners? Maybe Karishma, you might want to take up this question. Dr. Ankit,
Karishma
yeah.
will do the best to answer that.
Okay,
I think Karishma would answer that better.
Right.
I'm not a fan of artificial sweeteners because they actually can increase your blood sugar, your fasting blood sugar levels more high faster than your normal table sugar at times, because there is a glucose intolerance that comes in. What you could do is stick to stevia, because that's like a natural herb. Like, how do you have your oregano and stuff like that? So you neither have that. But again, what I would like to emphasize is I don't know why in our culture that we have so much of sweet or too much of salt. So even if you have like your cup of chai, right, or your cup of coffee, why can't we just enjoy the flavor without sweetening it? Like if you actually have a ginger tea, you don't require anything because the ginger is doing its work. When you're brewing your coffee, the caffeine is doing, the coffee beans are doing its work. So ideally try to get out of it. You don't need the sugar. Even when it comes to a lot of people tell me, a lot of PCOS clients and insulin resistance clients tell me, but I can have jaggery and honey. I'm like, boss, that is also going to create an insulin spike, but slowly, right? It's not going to create it as high, and your calories are still coming from there. So just get a mix of it. What you could ideally do is when, how am I lost again? It's showing me I can talk well.
No, you're there. You're there. We can hear you.
So ideally what you could do is that, instead of going completely cold turkey, you could wean the sugar off. So take a lot of natural foods which are sweet in nature. Like you increase your fruits in the morning till 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Or secondly, also have like your carrots and squashes. So stabilize your blood sugar levels and then decide to get off the table sugar and then wean off to your stevia. That's what you could do.
Got it. Thank you. Just one last question that we have. I think we've sort of addressed it already, but yeah. So if we are having periods in between 21 to 35 days or within 45 days regularly, do we need OCPs and metformin?
You're asking me?
Yes.
So if your periods are within 21 and 35 days and your hormones are regular, you don't require birth control pills for PCOD for sure. You don't.
Okay.
But if you're getting concurrent treatment for severe acne and weight loss and your hormones are mildly imbalanced despite regular periods, a 3-month course of a birth control pill with drospirenone, which helps water retention go away, will help a lot. But again, it's subjective. Each one to their own. I don't force anyone for it. If periods are regular, I don't force anyone to take birth control pills. It's not required.
I think we lost her now.
Yeah, Sakshi, are you?
Sorry, I'm here. I'm so sorry. Yes. Okay, great. So I think we're done with the Q&A round, and those were some really okay. I think there's one last question that's come up before we close the session. Is there does unwanted hair go after balanced? I mean, once your hormones are balanced, do unwanted?
Sorry to cut you, Sakshi. I have an emergency in the ward. I have to head there. I want to say bye to Karishma and Natasha.
Bye.
Bye, guys. And sorry, I'm leaving midway. And I'll hopefully after the lockdown we can meet up and have a live chat and all this somewhere. And take care. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Ankit.
Sorry and thanks. I'm sorry I'm leaving, and thanks to you all. Thanks for all the learning. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. So just this one question which says, does unwanted hair go after balanced hormones? So if your hormones are fairly under control, does the growth of your hair stabilize or go away?
So what you'll actually notice once your hormones, one is understanding what you mean by balanced hormones. So if your blood tests are fine, if you have no cysts and there's no endocrine disorder going on within your body, then yes, what you'll first notice is that thicker hair that you had starts becoming thinner and lighter in color, and it won't completely go away. But with treatments like your shaving and laser, it's definitely going to reduce in your density, and you're not going to get it back again until and unless there's again an hormone imbalance that starts in the future. It's a process. It takes a good 6 to 9 months, but it's a process.
Right. Thank you. I think there's one question being created, which is again that if you can cure or your periods without medication. So like all the experts said, yes, you can cure your irregular periods without medication. Lifestyle changes is the key. There's the answer to that question. So thank you so much, Dr. Natasha Karishma, for joining us today and sharing so much information, not just about PCOS, but general overall good health, good skin and hair. And I'm sure, all the women that attended the session today had lots to learn from you. So thank you for a great session. And if there's something you would just like to close the session with, just that one line, please do so, and then we can just end the session. Yeah, if you would just want to leave everybody with one last piece of advice.
Natasha, you want to go first?
Am I audible?
You can take
Yeah.
it, Karishma.
No, I was saying Natasha, go first.
Okay. I would just like to say that a happy mind is a happy body. So stressing over unnecessary stressors, I mean, I shouldn't say unnecessary, it's obviously bothering you a lot, but try to reduce it. And, if as long as your mind is happy, your body and your skin's going to be happy as well. So just be mindful and be stressed.
Right.
Yeah.
Karishma?
I just couldn't agree more to what Natasha said. It was very beautifully said. Just one thing that I could leave all the women there who are planning to conceive and PCOS is an issue with them. Remember that 90 days before conception, if you clean your diet and lifestyle, you will change the quality of your eggs. So please don't be disheartened if you've not done it so far. You still have a chance, and probably you can also share this information to a lot of people around you who are probably meaning to conceive in the near future, and I'm sure it'll work well.
Great. Thank you so much, you guys. That was again some really good piece of advice to leave our audience with, and hope to have you again on our platform soon. But for today, thank you really, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
you.
It was lovely.
And again, thank you. Great. And thank you to everybody who made time on a Monday evening, joined us for this session. And, again, thank you so much for being a part of the session. We can close it now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See you.